All right. So thank you everybody for being here. As I was saying, this presentation is intended to be a little disruptive somehow. In a way, maybe it's what at the end is happening in society right now with this intention of going outside our world and inhabit other places. So the first idea that came to my mind is, I mean, since I'm part of the overview effect roundtable and collaborating with several people, and my mind has been blown away many times. So it got me so interested, and also curiously, it's something that I've been working on for a while in different perspectives. Right. So first, I want to start with this video. Please let me know if you can hear it. All right.
Dale, compartir sonido.
All right. Oh, wait a second. Right?
Pantalla, tienes que dar. Compartir sonido de la computadora.
Great. I'm having some trouble.
I can see the video, but there's no sound.
But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater.
Ready? Okay.
Some call me nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
So this is great short documentary of Julia Roberts' voice, and also this video at the same time of the evolution of spaceflight, right? So as we listen and we know, the exponential growth of technology is taking us for in places that we have no idea that we could be in other times, right? So this is a conflict. For me, this idea of interplanetary or multiplanetary perspectives, and I changed a little bit the name of this presentation, right? So how do we prepare our children to live in a multiplanetary future, right? I know that there are a lot of experiences which I've learned that NASA, SpaceX, and many other institutions are doing, like in Anahita and BRE and or Aries with Mark and many other people that's going on in the overview effect, right? So first of all, I want to introduce a little bit of myself. This is somehow me. I'm founder of the Ecosystem for Human Development of Consciousness Studies. I've been working in education for over 10 years, specifically with a methodology called self-organized learning environments that was developed by Sugata Mitra. I'm going to talk a little bit about him. Fortunately, I have been able to be part of two high performance sports disciplines representing my country in ice hockey and rugby. So I've got more than 13 World Cups and physical experience and also coaching to high level performance sports and social teams, because one of the most important parts of my being is social entrepreneurship, right? Specifically with in circular economies and diverse ways of looking at the current situation with money, right? I'm also a learner of the tradition of ancestral traditions. Have done 6 of the 7 Lakota traditions, rituals, and I'm walking the path of ancestrality as well as accessing consciousness and other environments that we're right now starting to live as the metaverse, right? All the singularity dimensions. So I think with this process of living, with brief history of what am I doing here, right? In this specific talk, right? What am I talking about education, how it joins with cognition and also with consciousness, right? First of all, I must say that I believe that nobody has the absolute truth on what does consciousness means. We have a wide spectrum or idea about it, but at the moment, we don't know. So about 10 to 12 years ago, I met Sugata Mitra. He's a TED Prize winner in 2013, and his wish was building a school in the cloud. At that time, I was working in a nonprofit organization for rural communities in Mexico. And I was looking at the educational system and the process of the rural communities educational situation. And I noticed that there weren't enough teachers to teach people in rural communities. And if there were, the teachers were not really qualified. So that got me into a conundrum, how to take education to rural communities. In that time, I found Sugata Mitra, who proposes that education is a self-organized system and learning is an emerging phenomenon. It's not just about memorizing. Later on in this session, we're going to start talking about disruptive education. How do we manage going through the structures into the postmodern society? And how does that impact in education and consciousness? Also, some of the challenges that we have found, and many astronauts have told us that they've been suffering in long-term space travel, and somehow the consciousness of the universe within, right? And of course, this situation that many call spirituality, that maybe we can talk about it as meaning making, right? So first of all, I would love us to know and to acknowledge that we live in a constant evolution of a panopticon. Since Bentham, since Foucault, Orwell, Asimov, and now Byung-Chul Han show us that we're constantly under a structure of power, under a structure of vigilance, under a structure of punishment. Unfortunately, that has happened as well in education. More than 300 years ago, education was intention was to take order into empires, to be able to go in Rome and lead from one tip to another of the continent by a community of what maybe before it was human machines, right? This panopticon has unfortunately mixed with education. Many of our schools in most of the world are configured architectonically to be observed, for the children to be passive learners or to be passive recipients of what teachers may call knowledge. And always knowledge so far has been dictated through the governments, through the great big structures on dispositives that we call the panopticons. This diverse, either whether it's a school or it's a company or any other structure that configures the mind and the brain. And that's complex because in the process of growing, we lose what we need to keep an eye on education. Uh, so far in this moment, we have a lots of educational methodologies that are trying to break the traditional ways of looking at the school and the curriculum development. Many of them, as Sugata's Mitral self-organized learning environment, problem-based learning, STEAM, flipped classroom, all of these experiences have led us to understand as this amazing educational pedagogist called Paulo Freire. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a great pedagogist. He was a great pedagogist who was in charge of alphabetizing Brazil. So he developed this hypothesis and that we are living on a banking education. We're just trying to monetize children into the future of corporates. And that's a huge mistake. Before Socrates had the Mageutic methods, right now we might be living going into another era of Socratic method 3.0, what I call, is this process on social cognitive learning, on collaborative learning, or I would like to call it radical collaborative learning, right? In here, we can mix a lot of strategies like mindfulness, emotional management processes with children, and also entrepreneurship. For example, in this images that you can see here, I had a great experience in a nonprofit organization called Our Little Brothers, of children without homes or that they were taken away from their homes because of violence and addictions and alcoholism. So they took these kids and it's a great organization that holds more than 600 children in a beautiful place outside Mexico City. And we were starting to wondering, well, what do we do? We need to take children out of the schools, out of these walls. So we decided to create a program with a cinema complex called Cinepolis. So we would take once a month the children and see and watch movies or watch documentaries or images and activities to create new possibilities in their future. So they started to creating their own solar panels. In a rural community, they were children about 8, 9, 10, 11 years old building their own solar panels. And as you can see here in this other experiment that we did with a high, one of the most important schools in Mexico City, private schools, in the other complete extreme opposite, these children were trying to build an electric bike. In this project, we had kids building also new ingredients to create food for people without food in the streets, or planting seeds of medicinal plants in community parks. So these experiences would take the children outside of the school and exactly learn out from living, right? So this is a conflict because so far a lot of the theory and hypotheses of social development, neurocognition, and the design of the brain, I began to wonder then what's happening if we're allowing most of the schools in the world to avoid children to have social interactions, to avoid children to learn through experience. So I gathered three specific ways of looking at this from a social and neurosocial perspective. The first one is Bronfenbrenner's economical, I'm sorry, Bronfenbrenner's ecosystem, social ecosystem hypothesis, on which an individual develops from the inside of a circle, which is the immediate family, into an extended macrosystem. Children go through the microsystem, which is family, school, parents, right? And then to a mesosystem on which children go through rules, norms, and then even further into a bigger concept of society. So this creates what they call right now social representations. How do children or how do people represent their reality from what we are living? Most current analysis and brain and in neurology with EEGs, with MRIs, they're trying to understand the dynamics of the complex systems in the brain, trying to understand how one stimulus can create realities within an ORM process of codifying perception. How do we establish perception as our own reality and our consciousness? That's why social neurocognition right now and the development of high performance mind setting has come into an relevance. Social neurocognition is a hypothesis that tells us that our brain is not just one, we don't have one structure focused just in one sense, but we have multidimensional perspective codifications in several parts of the brain. And that's the way we understand society. So in these three ways of looking at it, taking on mind the panopticon that we're living in right now, the postmodern panopticon, right now we're living through fear. Humanity is living through fear. We're living through this constant bombing on violence, of sex, of pushing into our mind and brain alert system to react constantly and being in stressful situations constantly. Right now, we cannot access to consciousness if we keep going in this process in this way. So what's going on with our mind? So far, astronauts, the people that are going to orbit, they're telling us that there are different situations that happens in their brain, and there's sensory difficulties, as this study of space flight perturbation adaptation coupled with dysfunction. There's a lot of information about how the astronauts may be losing a lot of cognitive abilities as well as physical abilities, and also having problems with depression, anxiety, sleep deprivation, right? So that's unimaginable. We're having a chaos on astronauts, right? Um, Looking at the overview effects on the process on how astronauts has to make specific cognitive decisions, right? And understanding the way that many institutions have been educating also the astronauts for years and years to enhance specific abilities for them to take the proper decisions in the moment they need it. They also refer that they constantly recur to habits and rituals to maintain emotional stability or somehow emotional wellness. They refer that there are some kinds of lacking in motivation in long-term space traveling. Also, the possibility of training new ways of the mind and the brain. And then obviously, there comes a challenge in specifically long-term traveling on which you're gonna be in spacecraft for more than 3 years without stopping with a little, I don't know, 5 to 10 crew members, and you're gonna deal with them specific traumas all day long, all night long. And maybe if they get to Mars, or wherever, they're gonna have to be together for all the rest of their life. That's amazing how we are gonna deal with people for all the rest, just 5 to 10 people for the rest of life. That's gonna be a big worry in long space traveling until we find a way to go over the light speed, right? But I don't know if we're there yet. I'm not a physicist, but some may say it's not possible, right? Um, Also, this performance, in sports performance, I have learned at least this 5 specific pillars: sleep and nutrition, right? Which astronauts constantly refer to having problems with. Teamwork and relationship, healthy relationships, brain behavioral development, what we already said about how our brain is affected by microgravity, right? Which led us to monitoring all kinds of indicators possible. Everything it's been measured, and many people know this more than I do, right? And physical enhancement. They're constantly trying to find new ways to enhance their performance in space with running or in bicycles. And as you may know, it's difficult when in no gravity to have some exercise that can help the muscles, truly can help the muscles. And then there's the other problem that we're talking about again and again in the overview effect roundtable. What happens when you look the world outside, from the outside? It's kind of like looking craziness, looking yourself from the outside. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, what they call out of body experience, right? That situation that apparently your soul, you call it whatever, your spirit comes out from your body, right? And you can look at yourself. Some may call it astral projection. There are a lot of names, right? What has stunned me also the most is when you look at the world from the outside, saying, "Oh, that place is where I used to be me, and now I'm me out of that place where I used to be me," right? So that kind of cognitive dissonance of the self that might and can happen in the situations, and then this conflict of being in a quote unquote small spaceship within the unlimited space. That's amazing. Right now, we're living that experience in this world, this spaceship that we call Mother Earth, right? We're in a big spaceship going in the universe uh, really fast, and we don't know constantly. So being limited within the unlimited seems to me another duality that's a challenge to the mind, probably in long space travel. And then we have this. Nietzsche would say God is dead. And maybe Schrodinger would say God is both alive and dead. You know, we don't know. It seems that humanity for eons, ages, has tried to believe in something way beyond ourselves. We may call it God, we may call it consciousness, we may call it the Great One, the Ometeotl in Mexican ancestral tradition, Huacatanca for the Lakota traditions, right? Um, you call it. There are more than 400 gods so far. There are thousands of gods and angels and spiritual beings. So which one's the truth one? Which one's the real one? So that's why this neuroscience Byron is telling us feeling is really believing. Whichever God you believe, that's the right one. And curiously enough, humanity has had tendency to believe that their God is the one, right? And everybody else's God is wrong. I don't know. What I believe so far, what I've experienced so far is most ancestral traditions comes to the same situation. One love, one consciousness, just one being. Either is it multi-dimensional, omnipresent, whatever you might call it. All ancestral cultures that I've studied so far and all practices that they do they always tend to return to the origin. That's why it seems that for science so far, what I believe, we're not there yet to understand God. We're not there yet to understand at least humanity or consciousness, if we will. We have lots of way to walk to understand consciousness. And as I say constantly in this in a project that we do with shamans and traditional ancestrals and elders, where it seems we are walking, science is walking to the future of ancestral knowledge, right? So what is high consciousness? There was a great shaman in Mexico. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's called Maria Sabina. She used to say, this is a world beyond that is far away, nearby, and invisible. And this is interesting because also in a study created by the Royal Society interfacing with the Imperial College of London, they have been making studies with lots of techniques with meditation and also with entheogens, with plant medicines, what they call, with ancestral practices and tradition on accessing higher levels of consciousness. Many people may call them psychedelics, but this cultural and traditional perspectives call them entheogenous. Entheogenous comes from the word entheos, from the inside, and genesis, creation. And it's the creation from the inside. And also going back to the inside to understand the self and the connection to nature. These ancestral traditions has also led to a lot of experiences of how people have experienced higher states of consciousness with specifically ceremonial and traditional intakes of entheogens. For example, all these people that you may see and look familiar with, John Lennon, Walt Disney, Albert Hoffman, Jimi Hendrix, Aldous Huxley, Jim Morrison, and many, many other either scientists, entrepreneurs, many people are looking at this perspective of ancestral traditions for healing. And when I came to the overview effect, I was amazed that this group of scientists and people that are really knowledgeable, they are talking about maybe besides the therapy that we have commonly with virtual reality in space, with artificial intelligence, maybe we can find other ways to find uh, healing and connection with nature outside of this world. So in the research conducted here in Mexico, imagine this is some figures, some numbers that we found in the experience of using ancestral practices of consciousness and tradition for emotional well-being. For example, this is just 4 markers, and we have thousands. We have more than 250 people in this research on how these experiences can enhance emotional well-being and lower down depression. As you can see that 55% of the people in this group experience strong, deep love for everyone around them. And 33% extreme. That's a lot of percentage of people that can feel love for everything and everyone around you. I don't know if you have ever felt that experience of 70% of your time feeling about everything around you. So these people experiences this. Also peace and tranquility. We have had people with high depression, anxiety, stress disorder, PTSD. We have had people with abusive trauma, addictions, going through these processes, and this is a constant analysis on from the people that are experiences these processes. Imagine more than 90% people feeling deep love from this for themselves. How the world could change if everybody would love themselves 99% of the time. That's what Claudia in the previous conference was talking about, connecting the hearts. That's what I learned, and I saw Claudia in these other words, is connecting the heart with the intention, with the possibility. and also with nature. We're going to be in a big conflict. We are right now. You know that we are with the climate change. We know that you know that we are with this race of going to space as fast as we can because we might be needing it, right? So this process of coming back to the consciousness, coming back to ancestrality, coming back to joining science with the best knowledge of the sacracy that in the first conference that we had, I forgot her name, amazing person that was telling us about um, their program on space education for kids. She was saying us that the most important thing that we have to have as educators is this sacracy for education. Children are sacred, right? And many of our of teachers, many people are not understanding it, right? So right now, I would love us to think about, how to access consciousness, right? And processes of behavioral enhancement, right? This link on how to hack our minds into proper processes of development on high performance in space, right? Besides technology, what do you think, right? For example, what do you think we need to have right now to create the new perspective of an environment of humanity? Either it's in space, either it's in our world, or also in the metaverse, the digital world. Right now, we're space and time bounded. Where are we, right? Other part of the importance of the chaos theory and, for example, the Schrodinger metaphors or examples is how our mind can be and can not be at the same time. I always, with my patients, I always like to tell them, give me a gram of feeling, give me a pound of emotion. You know, we oftenly think that emotions are real. We oftenly think that we are living reality, right? But what I've learned from unifying quantum physics and psychology and neurology is that as far as we have specific neurons, specific situation spaces in our brain on which we connect our reality, it can happen that it's just gone. A memory can just happen in 1 second. Right now, if I ask you to remember the most beautiful tree that you have ever seen, you can create or recreate an image of the tree. And maybe if it's the most beautiful tree you've ever seen, you might have some emotion arising right now. And if then you see that tree with your family, with people that you love, then it comes more emotion. So right now we're creating reality. Right now we're recreating a past reality. We're leaving the past. And some scientists say that's not possible, but it is. Time is not existent. It seems it doesn't exist. We just created it because we need to explain things and stuff, right? But in our mind, in our brain, in the structure, in neuroscience, most research is going, whatever you create in your mind, that's the meaning making of your own mind. Whatever you believe, whatever you think, it's going to be true. And if you align your heart, your intention, your goals, your mission, your abilities, your experience, right? What we talked about, the habits, the performance, when we begin to align, we create our sense of agency, what others may call empowerment, maybe. The sense of agency is the ultimate ability of acquiring the responsibility of yourself, the full responsibility. That's difficult as a human being. We have been built somehow to blame others because of our emotions and feelings. We have been built to create our ideas of this is not my problem. This is everybody else's problem. We have been built to be separate from one another. So maybe it's time to break that paradigm. Maybe it's time to start losing our egotistical self and start wondering on how we can start helping each other even more, on how to create a revolution on collaboration. Because as many people may know, they are already trying to build a constitution, a legal constitution for people to live in outer space, in orbit. And if we're going to allow everybody, oh, I don't know, governments on some specific people to do so, we're going to just repeat what we have been experiencing so far. We're going to end up the same, right? So in this process, I would love us to think, is there really a consciousness? And then how can we deal with consciousness in different environments and situations? How to create the brain of our children to be able to endure these challenges of living multidimensionally, multiplanetary. Right now, where I'm right now in two places at once because I have one computer here and one computer there, and I can see myself twice, right? So right now we're able to do this. What's going to happen with children? I'm really worried. So we need to take our process in these hands and our ideal situations as the previous talk and ideas was, how are we going to build the school for humanity to live multiplanetary experiences with the best quality life possible, right? Because they're not coming back. And they're going to create another society. The people that are going outside, they're going to create another society. So I'm going to leave a little bit more room to talk after this slide. So this is my last thought. You know, perhaps this rupture of time space that we're living, this diverse panopticons, the digital panopticons, their artificial intelligence, the singularity that we're living in, this extreme connectivity. Maybe we need to break the limits within the limited. The limited. Maybe we need to have a hacker mind to understand completely our brain to find new possibilities of humanity. We're now multidimensional, multiplanetary beings. Either we repeat or keep destroying what we have so far, because we cannot run away from this destruction, from Mother Earth right now experiences this suffering. Or maybe this egotistical idea of perpetuating life in this world, right? That maybe we as species are not, we do not deserve this majestic space that we're just borrowing for a minute or two in a cosmic scale, right? Either we collaborate in a new paradigm, in a new systemic wellness, through consciousness education, through accessing of the most top of the technology that's available right now, and this exponential growth of technology, and united with consciousness, with traditions, with lots of wisdom that has been gathering for millions of years and in humanity. I urge people on this that listen to this to build our current and future realities right now, not later, to keep on working on our well-being in our own world. This is our own world. Nobody else's responsibility is to take care of our body, of our mind, of our spirit, if you will, of our soul. Nobody else is responsible, but I am. And then we can share a co-responsibility, an intentional co-responsibility to grow as a community, to change the things that we have been looking that's not working. As Sugata Mitra is saying, this is obsolete. We're running out of time. We have to make a change immediately. and not letting big places, big, corporates, organizations to lead this process. As Claudia said in the last conference, we are the scientist citizens. We are the entrepreneur citizens. We are the collective humanity. We are the ones that had to create them, not letting everybody else to do so. So maybe we can explore then the potential of new natural environments. Whenever we are, whatever we are, whatever we do, we can enhance our potential with just slim changes. As the first conference I was wondering is, let children be free. Let's let children be free to create their minds with all their possibilities and capabilities without breaking the potential of their brain development in clusters, school structure. Maybe we don't need school anymore. Maybe we need more community school. We maybe need more children going outside of classrooms to live. So we can create a humanity that wants living, that owns their own process of creation. We need to create a whole new perspective on education without curriculums, without testing, without numbers. Let's just live, allow children to be, and we'll create the perfect dancer in the orbit and the moon, as we can see the guy in the dancing in the spacesuit. That's a freedom that we can achieve in the future, but only if we change it right now. So thank you very much. I'm gonna leave a few minutes of just chatting, more than questions and answers. If you want, if you have a question for me or for the group or for the people that were here, please feel free to open your mic and just chat. Thank you very much. I see some chats here.
David quiere hablar.
David, do you want to talk?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. This is really interesting to me as I'm a sociologist / anthropologist, and it seems like we're kind of dancing back and forth between the physical needs of living in space and the emotional and psychological, maybe even spiritual needs of living in outer space. And it kind of felt like maybe you were taking Maslow's hierarchy of needs and kind of flipping it on its head, which I like. I've seen some research on how, that works. So, in some of the sessions we're looking at, what are the absolute physical needs that a person is going to have to live, to literally physically live in space. But maybe that top of the hierarchy, that actualization is really where we actually need to start, counterintuitively to what Maslow said, in that pyramidic structure. It almost kind of implies that we should start with the actualization before we can move to the physical needs, which is completely opposite, but there's definitely models out there that suggest that hierarchy is problematic, for that very reason.
I love that comment. Thank you, David. I love it. You haven't come to my mind, actually. Thank you for that. It's an amazing way of looking at it, because what we would imagine, if you're in a spaceship and then you suffer a nervous collapse, you need the body is not the most important thing to achieve, to be aware of. Is the mind that we're talking about, right? Because as you said, the body's functions are, it seems that they are constantly under difficulties, sound, all of our sensory awareness, it seems it's changed. So that's why accessing to different states of abilities of emotional management, individual and collective emotional management, right? That's why as a psychologist, I was blown my mind away, because what are we going to have to do, for example, right now in the ISS, right, with this conflict in Russia and China, and that what I've learned and what people have said in the overview effect is that they get along pretty well, right? Astronauts and cosmonauts and people in the ISS, they get along pretty well, but how long, right? And then this other situations of group management. That's why high performance, I've learned in NASA, they work a lot with high performance and teamwork, right? How to establish proper relationships, for example, 3-4 years that or more that people is working together to go to a mission in orbit, right? So that I agree that that's great. Thank you for that. What do you guys think? I know Paula has a great experience in this, so I would love you to share with us a little bit.
Well, I've been working in the space community for many decades, and I think that I've seen a variety of behaviors and group productivity. And what I guess what interests me is what I've seen in space and getting ready to be in space is people working together to be successful in survival and in their mission of whatever they're going to be working on. I mean, survival is at the top of the list. And so everyone has to play according to the rules. And they go, at least to this point, most of our astronauts have been from NASA, and now the European Space Agency has been very active. And we've, on the space station, we've had astronauts from around the world. And they all live together on the space station for periods of time, and they learn to adapt, and they go into intense training to prepare for the experience. There have been events that didn't go very well, and you don't hear about them much, but they're very limited. Most of the missions are very positive. People working together, helping each other, problem solving, saving each other's lives, fixing things, sitting at the table eating dinner together, and people from different countries bring their specialties and they share them with each other. I mean, I have seen evidence of wonderful human behavior in space. And they're dealing with completely different issues than we do here on Earth. And so the experience it's obviously very focused, and all the people are highly selected. I mean, I think that's a key to all of this. I mean, you can't get on unless you pass all the tests, both physically and emotionally and intellectually. So I think the experience, though, is teaching us a lot about life on Earth and how we live. But it's so different here on Earth, really, if you think about it, because we have people who are very, very poor. We have people who are very, very wealthy. The rules on Earth, the rules and experience on Earth are so different than people in a contained unit in space, where your activity is limited. They exercise and they do a lot of work, and they work on experiments, and they work a lot on the outside to fix things. But, it's not like Earth, where you can go where you want to go and people's behavior isn't limited. It takes a lot to become an astronaut and get to go into space. You're selected. So, boy, what do I think of it? When we go to the moon, which is coming up, fairly close in the next 5 years, we'll be developing a population on the moon. That's the plan. And again, I suspect that the people who get to go are going to be very wealthy. So, I mean, we're not bringing Earth to the moon, you know, it's a very selected group of people who get to go. It requires intelligence and experience. I think eventually it's possible that people on the moon will evolve because they'll stay on the moon for periods of time. So there's an extension relative to like the space station, which is kind of limited, but we had the longest person recently come back from Earth. It was a little over a year. I don't know, maybe close to 14 months. I can't remember the exact length of time. You know, going into space, it involves so many different parts of our lives, and our personalities and who we are as humans and how we deal with other humans. And when you select people to be together, they're all trained, they're all well behaved. You know, when you have a pet, you know, that pet has to learn to behave and have signals and respond in certain ways. I don't mean to compare humans with dogs, but I'm talking about the process of
Well, people
behavior.
have the,
Pardon?
yeah, that Pavlov has
Right.
thought of that.
So when we have people on the moon for periods of time, long periods of time, I don't see people living on the moon, but they'll be on the moon for long periods of time. I mean, they will be visiting. There's gonna be a big mining expedition on the moon. There's going to be lots of, you know, scientists exploring various aspects of the moon, and all around the moon, the poles and so forth. Survival again is an issue, and there'll also be a lot of tourism. So they're going to build hotels and restaurants, and they've already determined that they will have rovers taking visitors to see all the Apollo landing sites. I mean, they're well into planning. They've gotten very specific about a lot of the planning. But you know,
Kind
that's
of,
like when you go,
it's gonna be
huh?
like Disney, like going to Disneyland.
In a sense, yes. Or taking a vacation anywhere. You know, you go for a period of time. I've traveled around in Europe quite a bit. I haven't really been beyond Europe, but you know, how people live, what kind of food they have, what are their ways of being. And you know, it's great. You know, it's an expansion of your experience. Being on the moon will be a different kind of expansion. I mean, you have to walk around in your spacesuit. And, you know, there's
Yeah.
again the issues of air and water and survival. I think being on the moon will be a great experiment for humanity. And I'm not just talking about the Apollo missions where they stayed for a few days. I'm talking about being on the moon for a period of time. Maybe it's a month or more or a year. But as a visitor, you know, being on the moon, being on a different surface, dealing with wearing spacesuits, it gives you an exposure to the variances of the space environment.
Yeah.
And this, of course, is a step to going to Mars, which is a planet, not a moon. And, you know, big issues, you know, it takes a long time to get there. And again, we will be dealing with shelters, water, air, electricity, all of the things that's so common here on Earth.
So,
but we have to go back to where we were when we started out on Earth, right? You know, we were just people living with trees and looking for food, and we evolved. And so this will happen on planets and as we explore other places.
So as you are describing, and you know a lot on the space situation, you know, in the space community, right? Should we prepare children to do that?
Absolutely.
Should
Because
we be
those are
doing
the
it?
people who are going to be able to do it, right? You know?
So,
What were you going to
yeah.
say?
No. That's kind of like what to be continued, right? Because we got Moon coming on in the next 5 years, and Mars in the next 7 to 10, 15 years, right? And then space tourism within the next 20, 30 years, perhaps, right?
Well, space
Right now,
tourism will come quickly once
right?
things get
Faster.
going on the moon.
Right.
That's and there will also be space tourism in low Earth orbit. So low Earth orbit, we should mention this. This is really expanding now as we speak. Planning for hotels and restaurants and people coming and spending time in orbit. And so it's a lot going on commercially with that.
Thank you. Helen's raised her hand.
Yes,
Helen,
I
thank you.
actually can't wait for this to happen. Not because I'm anxious to go, actually I'm not. But I think when I put myself in that situation of going, and all that you've described, both of you, I see that why I'm looking forward to it, because I think the people that go will appreciate Earth that much more. And that's why I can't wait for it to happen, because it'll wake up some people that think they got to get away from Earth. And that's why they don't care what's going to happen to it. And they'll find that the grass is not greener on the other side at all. That
it's different, but it's not necessarily greener.
Right, absolutely. And to me, that will make a change here for here. It doesn't mean that building and so on the moon shouldn't happen. I think it should. I think it would make a great holiday. I think it would teach children an awful lot. And I do want to bring up, Oscar, what you mentioned about schooling for children, and that instead of a classroom situation, that let them live life, but teaching them through life. They can still get mathematics, they can still get reading, they can still get all the education, and yet they will learn how to use it in life. And they will be able to handle situations that come along, which will help them to adapt to our future. I agree with you totally that a classroom situation has come to its time to change. I see children getting lost. They are getting so bored with their classroom situation, and they're finding the improper outlets. And that's what I believe as teachers and parents, society,
I agree completely.
to teach them how to handle their boredom, whatever that comes to, the feelings and emotions that come up, and how to handle those, because that's what their future is.
Mm.
And what great things that they'll be able to do if they can handle that much. They can concentrate on things that for their future. So
Yeah.
I
You
certainly,
know, I think that when we started out, I don't know what it's like around the rest of the world, but certainly in this country, we've always had these schoolhouses, you know, where we had children in the beginning, it was like one schoolhouse for all ages and all of that sort of thing. And maybe those who lived on farms, the kids also worked on the farms. But we've clung to the concept of the schoolhouse all
Mm.
these years. And so we spend, as kids, we spend half of our lifetime in a classroom, which is not experiential, and we don't grow as humans. We don't evolve. We're just
Mm.
learning things. I remember when I was in high school, I was in this school, you know, you had to take Latin and ancient history. And I mean, I can recite Latin. I mean, to what end? To what end is that when I went around and visited Italy, I was able to translate for people around me. But, you know, we have to think about education as an evolved process, not as this list of things you need to know. Do we need to know these things? If you want to know some things, teach them how to research it. And certainly we have, you know, you just go to the website now and you can find anything you're looking for.
Mm.
So I think that we need to evolve our approach to education,
Mhm.
both in terms of how we learn things and also the options for experiencing things, because they're all learning processes.
Yeah, I agree. Just I want to share this experience as kid I'm pointing right now. This what a great experience and experiment on with first grade kids on which we were learning about butterflies, and we mix biology with geometry with math, and we took them to a butterfly sanctuary, and then in the classroom, we got them to learn through the computers how to build a butterfly sanctuary. So each group of kids designed their own sanctuary for their own butterflies in the classroom, right? And this was an amazing situation because as if you can see this guy, this little guy has a little butterfly, you know, here. And when they got to release them, they started to say, freedom, freedom, like a whole bunch of little first graders shouting with the lungs, with smiles, freedom for their butterflies, which they were feeding and growing since from their little papas, right? So this kind of education is the things that we want. I did my master's in cognitive psychology and learning in Argentina, and I used to lead homeschooling projects. So we were just 1 or 2 days in one home. We gathered at home on one home, and we were 1 or 2 days at home. And the other days, the 3 days that we had left, we were in the trains, we were in the museums, we were building hydroponics, we were playing gamification, we were using VR, but outside the school and outside the walls.
Yes.
We have to take our children outside the walls.
And experience
Learning.
learning, not just memorization.
Not just memorization, repetition, and
Yes.
also in classrooms, we learn through punishment. We learn through punishment. If we think about it and how that creates our brain structure, it's extremely unhealthy because our alert system is constantly focused on punishment and reward, and that's our classes, that's our school system, that's the panopticon I was saying. We have to break this. We have to allow to live, to learn through experience learning, right? This whole methodology. Let's get out of schools. I presented a paper in Psychoanalytic Society in Argentina of Education when I said the school is dead.
Yeah.
You know, The school is dead. We have to reconstruct school. And the subtitle was deconstructive schooling and curriculum school. You know, we have to break it all and rebuild it. Not everything's wrong. You know, they're beautiful teachers, amazing teachers, amazing people that are at service. I've met in the jungle of Mexico in a rural community a teacher that had to walk more than 3 hours to get to teach the classes and back, in, you know, 8 hours away from the next phone, right? And I was with him. We implemented a program with a company in the United States called Endless Computers, which were computers without internet, kind of like Raspberries, right? But another startup. It's a beautiful startup, and the owner is an amazing young guy. We put endless computers with information because we didn't have access to internet, with information in a rural school community. I mean, it wasn't a school. It was the kids were learning beneath a tree, and we have computers there, right? And there were no teachers. They would learn from each other. That's the potential also of learning. We think we have to teach kids. Mm-mm.
Oh, we don't
No, we don't have to teach kids. We need to let them learn.
learn. And
We
from
need
each
to
Provide
other,
opportunities
them.
for learning.
yes, and
Exactly.
from
We
each other.
create. Yeah,
From
from
each
each
other.
other.
Now our schooling is don't talk. You have to
Yeah.
listen to the teacher. And here, I mean, we know now that it's overdue for a change, and that how much is they learn more out during their recess.
Mhm.
I'll be honest with you, that's the way I see it, from each other. And you see, they because that recess, that outside world is what their future is.
Yeah,
That's what their future. It's not in a classroom.
it's not in a class.
Not in a
We
classroom.
have a hand lift up, so this card. Thank you.
Yes, hello everybody. I just want to say that it makes sense to me that in order to go in these kind of situations of where I'm going to go in a mission for wealthy people to outer space and live my life with a group of people, I think learning should be more about synergy and understanding how we can learn from each other, understand how we can match our talents, understand how we can create and build new, whatever we want to build, whatever, a community, a society, a machine, whatever. I think that we need to start teaching our kids in school about synergy, about how we can collaborate with each other, and how we can collaborate instead of compete with each other. I think it's an important lesson just to include that concept from the beginning, because we usually include that in corporations later on. But I think understanding that we can learn from each other, each individual has like a unique point of view, a unique perspective where I could learn from, I could collaborate, and we can create different things with different people at the same time. I think that's the way to break the panoptical experience. And I think that would be very interesting just to have that input in schools. Thank you.
Thanks, sis. Let's build it. Let's do it. It's in our hands. And I don't know if, I think we gone past the time. Am I right?
Yes.
So thank you very much for being here, for listening, for your opinions, for your presence, for your cognition, for your consciousness, for your being on this endeavor to create new educational processes for this near future that we have to tackle. there's a challenge, huge challenge. And as Giscard said, he's the one who helped me out to put together this presentation. Thank you very much. And it's part of a team of people that we're building new realities, social entrepreneurs, consciousness leaders, educators, psychologists, lawyers. We're building a community on which we can learn and we can work together to build a new society now here in this world before going outside. Because if we do not do that right now, whatever or whoever is going to go outside, it's going to be wrong. So thank you very much for this amazing opportunity of your listening. And as in ancestral traditions in Mexico, we say thank you for your hearts and your faces, right? And
Take your presentation to big companies, people who can really make the change, because I am 80 years old, and
80 years young.
80 years young, and I find myself not able to go out there and do the traveling and be out there anymore. And but I see a person like yourself, Oscar, and younger people. I say approach whoever, groups, companies, and do your presentations. I loved your presentation. I think it was great, and a lot more people need to see it. A lot more people need to see it. Everything that's happening here at this time, it really has to go further than this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your words.
And thank you.
I have one quick comment, if I may. There are a lot of training companies now, but training experiences around the world relating to space. Some are in Mexico and some of them in Hawaii and a lot in Europe, in various locations where people stay for a week or 2 weeks and they experience being in a simulation of space. I mean, of course, they have gravity, but they train and have the experience of what it's like, just working with the team and the behavior and the isolation and all of that. I think I just wanted to add that to your educational thinking, because I think that would be great for kids.
Yeah, I would love that for kids and for myself. Elon, hire me. I see. I want to be in Mars. That's the marketing. I really do think that this process, this idea of high performance and education and consciousness must be taken out of this place, and all that we are doing in the overview effect roundtable and all the people that's in here, right, like Paula and many other people, it's amazing, and I'm really honored to meet. And you, Helen, maybe you cannot travel as much as you wish, but internet can get you everywhere.
Yes,
and if you want to teach, if you want to do something in education, let's keep in touch, because we have with Sugata Mitra, we have a Granny Cloud. It's a place with people that are older can get together and teach to children all over the world. Actually, I introduced Mark and Sugata Mitra, so they can try and see if the self-organized learning environment methodology, the school in the cloud and the Granny Cloud it's called the Granny Cloud, can take education to either furthest places, right? So if you want to keep on being here, living and sharing your wisdom, which I'm sure you have, please, let's keep in touch, and you can connect with children all over the world and keep planting seeds.
Great. That's great. I don't consider myself as a teacher, but I do like to share my experience, and encourage young people. So I would like to do that. I know in my past, I did not have the opportunity, but I realize now with the internet, and my life was busy, and now I'm just by myself.
If you want to, we can keep in touch and just write me, and I'll hook you up in the Grand Time, and you'll share your wisdom with people all over the world, and that's fun. And you as well, David. Thank you very much for your presence and your comments. You got my mind all again going. So thanks for everything. And if there's something I could be helpful at, be at service, and with anybody here or more people, please let me know. I'll be honored to collaborate. I'm a radical collaborator.
Where is where would we be able to do that, or do you have a website?
Yeah, through my email. I'm gonna write it down in my chat, or my Instagram, or my LinkedIn, or
Great.
Use something that we all have access to.
yeah, it's my email. I think it's the best one to do so. And yeah, I think that would be good. All right.
So yes, right there. Thank you. Don't close it off now until I get it down.
No worries. No worries. Thank you. I'm honored. And you can find me as Oscar O'Farrell in LinkedIn.
Great.
And lots of other media. And also in the metaverse, and I'm Oscar Meta Psychologist. So we can have psychotherapy with my VR glasses. I'm doing that right now. I'm charging in Ethereums. Oh, you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm already training the ISS virtual reality platforms. I'm already training for it. I'm gonna be there.
Good. Good.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
you.
And see you soon.
Thank you.
Oscar, it sounds like I missed a really good session. I'm the moderator for the next one so whoever's recording has the recording. Awesome. And I'm looking forward to now going back to the recording, because this sounds like it was absolutely fascinating.
Thank you very much.
So the next session in this particular room